Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to week 2 of our virtual summer library program. This week's program is Pirates Ahoy. Now, we have lots of great pirate books that you can see behind me that you can check out to learn more about pirates. And really, pirates were pretty bad guys. They stole things, they took over ships. They were really some mean, bad characters like Blackbeard or Captain Kidd. But the stories that we're going to read today are not scary. They're fun and they're funny. There's a couple of things that you need to know, or one very important thing that you need to know if you want to be a pirate, and that is how to talk like a pirate. So if you wanted to say hello like a pirate, you would say ahoy. And if you wanted to say yes like a pirate, you would say aye. And if you wanted to say food like a pirate, you would say grub. So there's lots of funny words in different language that pirates used, different from what we use today. But I think you'll find that it's funny and you'll enjoy it. So join us on our pirate adventure today, and we hope you have a great time learning about and enjoying these stories about pirates. Now, if you want to be a pirate, it's very important to know how to talk like a pirate. So this book is Pirate Pete's Talk Like a Pirate, and it's written by Kim Kennedy, illustrated by Doug Kennedy. The publisher is Abrams Books for Young Readers. Pirate Pete had the most amazing ship ever to sail the high seas. But he needed a crew. Not just any crew would do, however. "I needs me a pirate crew," Pete told his parrot, "and I know just where to find one, Rascal Island." "To Rascal Island we go," cried the bird. Pete spun his wheel toward the Sea of Mischief, and soon his speedy ship had reached Rascal Island. See all those funny-looking ships? Pete dropped anchor in the bay, and he hung a sign across the ship's bow, "Buccaneers Wanted." Buccaneer is another name for pirate. Before long, a boat filled with rascals rowed up to the ship. Pete rubbed his hands in glee. They were the dirtiest, most mischievous, and sneakiest looking scalawags and scurvy dogs he had ever set his eyes on. One by one, the rascals climbed aboard the ship. "Listen up, matey," said the parrot. "If you wants to sail with Pete, then you gots to prove you got what it takes." Pete nodded and declared, "You needs a peg leg and an old eye patch, a fierce-looking hook, and a beard you can scratch. You gots to load a cannon and know how to fire it, but most of all, you gots to talk like a pirate." A rascal stepped forward and loaded the cannon and fired it. "Nice firing," said Pete, "and I see you got a peg leg, hook, and eye patch. And that beard of yours, does it hanker for a scratch?" "It is quite itchy," answered the man, "especially during the summer when the weather tends to be sultry." "Blow me down," bellowed Pete. "You don't talk like a pirate. Walk the plank." As the man splashed overboard, Pete hollered, "You should have said, when the wind's a-blazing, me beard gets the itchies. Worse than a bucket of sand down me britches." "Next," ordered the parrot. Pete squinted at the rest of the rascals and said, "You gots to be stubborn and mighty cranky. You gots to be dirty and awfully stanky. You gots to load a cannon and know how to fire it, but most of all, you gots to talk like a pirate." A rascal stepped forward and loaded the cannon and fired it. "Nice firing," said Pete, "and I see that you're plenty dirty and stanky, but is ye stubborn and cranky?" "Oh, indeed," replied the rascal. "Sometimes I'm very irritable, especially when I don't eat my breakfast." Shiver me timbers, shouted Pete. You don't talk like a pirate. Walk the plank. As the rascal went overboard, Pete cried, You should have said, I's as mean as a shark that's stuck in a tub when I've not scarfed me morning grub. Next, squawked the bird. Pete glared at the rascals and said, You gots to love treasure. Why, it's your duty to plunder the ship and score shore for gleaming booty. You gots to load a cannon and know how to fire it, but most of all, you gots to talk like a pirate. A rascal stepped forward, loaded the cannon, and fired it. Nice firing, said Pete, and judging by the gold and rubies you're flaunting, I reckon you done some plundering in your day. That is correct, said the rascal. I've misappropriated a number of fine jewels without permission. Blimey, cried Pete. You don't talk like a pirate. Walk the plank. As the rascal leaped overboard, Pete shouted, You should have said I've pilfered loot on land and at sea, and no man's say-so has ever stopped me. Next, blared the parrot. Pete shook his head. He had finally lost his patience. He curled up his lip at the last rascal and declared, You gots to trim the sails and mind the deck. You gots to be brave in case of shipwreck. You gots to load a cannon and know how to fire it. But most of all, you gots to talk like a pirate. The rascal walked forward, loaded the cannon, and fired it. Nice firing, said Pete, but is ye brave? 'Cause no lily-livered seafarer's gonna sail with me. I can assure you that I am extremely courageous, said the rascal. I will conduct myself with valor at all times. Confound it, shouted Pete, stomping his foot. You don't talk like a pirate. Walk the plank. As the rascal dropped overboard, Pete yelled, You should have said, I've not a yellow-bellied bone from my head to my toes. I'll stand brave upon this ship wherever she goes. Can you believe it? Pete moaned to his parrot. Out of all them rascals, not one was fit for me crew. 'Tis true, squawked the bird. By the powers, they's no more than a bunch of squivels and sprogs. None of 'em fit to go a swashbuckling and plundering for pieces of eight upon the briny blue on this here vessel. Pete blinked. Why, you talk just like a pirate, he cheered the bird. You're all the crew I needs. Weigh anchor. Aye, aye, said the parrot, and off they sailed. Back to the high seas went Pete and his bird. A pirate always gets the last word. They looked for a crew so they could hire it, but blimey, none could talk like a pirate. Hope you enjoyed this book, Pirate Pete's Talk Like a Pirate. This book is Edward and the Pirates by David McPhail. It's published by Little, Brown and Company. Once Edward learned to read, there was no stopping him. Cereal boxes at the breakfast table, seed catalogs that arrived on the coldest day of winter, the inscription on the monument in the town square, and books, all kinds of books. So Edward loved to read everything. Edward especially liked the stories of adventure. When he read about Admiral Peary racing by dog sled to the North Pole, Edward was right there alongside, comforting the brave dogs and urging them to go on. When he read about the bold outlaw Robin Hood was surrounded by the evil Sheriff of Nottingham's men, it was Edward who came to their rescue. When he read about Joan of Arc leading her troops to victory, it was Edward who carried her shield and held it up just in time to deflect the blow of the battle axe. Sometimes what Edward read seemed to become real. Once, while he was reading a book on dinosaurs, he was convinced that he saw a Tyrannosaurus looking into his window. Can you see the dinosaur looking in his window there? Next to home, the library was Edward's favorite place. He had his own library card, and he could borrow all the books he could carry. One day, Edward found a book lying on the shelf behind some other books. The book was old and covered in dust. Edward blew away the dust and read the title, Lost Pirate Treasure. He sat down and began to read. Some pirate treasure has never, ever been found. Edward was still reading when he felt someone tap him on the shoulder. It was Miss Torres, the librarian. Time to go, Edward, she said. The library will be closing soon. Edward checked out the book and walked home, arriving just in time for supper. That night, Edward went to bed early, taking his book with him. When the pirate ship was being tossed on stormy seas, it was Edward who bravely took the helm. Can you see Edward on the pirate ship up here, steering it? Sometime in the night, Edward felt his bed being bumped. Edward sat up and looked around and saw he was surrounded by pirates. What are you pirates doing in my room? He demanded. We've come for that book, said the pirate, who seemed to be the leader. We think it tells where our treasure is buried. I can't give it to you, Edward explained. It's checked out on my library card. You'll have to wait until I return it. The pirates begged, but Edward would not change his mind. They pleaded, but Edward folded his arms around the book and shook his head no. They even promised him a share of the treasure, but that didn't work either. You'll have to walk the plank, threatened the pirates. But Edward stood firm. Finally, one of the pirates drew his sword and waved it over Edward's head. Hand it over, he roared, but Edward wouldn't budge. Better be quiet, he warned the pirates, or you'll wake up my mom and dad. Edward had just finished speaking when the door to his room burst open and someone riding a huge white horse charged in. It was Edward's mother. She was dressed in a shining suit of armor and carrying a lance. She pinned the sword-waving pirate to the wall. But then the other pirates drew their swords and closed in for an attack. Suddenly, a flurry of arrows flew through the air, knocking all the swords away. A figure dressed in a green tunic bounded into the room, bow drawn, arrows at the ready. It was Edward's father. Back off, he commanded the pirates. Go stand in the corner. The pirates did as they were told. Don't hurt us, they begged. Edward felt sorry for the pirates. They only came for this book, he said to his mother and father. I don't think they meant any harm. Edward handed the book to the pirates. The head pirate held it open while the others huddled close by, talking in whispers. After a few minutes, the pirate gave the book back to Edward. It's no use to us, he said sadly. We can't read. You can't read? Asked Edward. Not one word, said the pirate. None of us can. Well, I'll read it to you then, said Edward. That's if it's all right with my mom and dad. It was. But don't stay up too late, said his mother. And close the window when you leave, Edward's father said to the pirates. As his mother and father left the room and went to bed, Edward opened the book and began to read. Some pirate treasure has never been found. I hope when you read books that you get into the adventure just like Edward did. He found himself in the center of a lot of stories and really loved and enjoyed them. So I hope you'll read a lot this summer, check out books, and get into the story just like Edward did.